Though working out on a boat definitely comes with some challenges, there are many exercises you can do even with those challenges that will give you a pretty good workout. Hi, I'm Nico Waters, and welcome to the Boat Galley Podcast. I'm sharing 3 specific, fairly simple exercises that require no equipment whatsoever that can even be done on a small boat. Today's episode of the Boat Galley Podcast is sponsored by Sailrite, the one-stop shop for all your DIY canvas and upholstery projects. From heavy-duty portable sewing machines to fabric, foam, and everything in between, Sailrite's outstanding customer support and free how-to videos empower you to sew for your boat, home, and more. Visit sailrite.com to get started on your DIY journey. That's SAILRITE.com. Sometimes when you talk to people about living on board and going cruising, the immediate assumption is that it's the world's most healthy living lifestyle possible. And yes, though there are aspects of living on a boat that could definitely be considered very healthy, it still means that you need to do some exercise generally. Of course, any question about cruising needs to be caveated with it depends. So depending on your particular situation, maybe not. But in general, exercising on board needs to be intentional, but also being aware of what the challenges might be. And 2 big challenges are that space is generally at a premium, both laterally and vertically, particularly if you want to work out down below and not on deck. The vertical clearance can be very challenging. Even if you have a boat where you can stand up down below, it's hard to do workouts that involve jumping or even raising your hands overhead. And the second real big challenge that happens on any boat is that the boat moves, even on a calm day, even at a dock. And that means that any exercise that involves leaving the ground, like any jumping or anything like that, that can be maybe more surprising than you might expect. Hey, check it out. The ground's in a different spot than when I took off. So while there are lots and lots of exercises you can do that take into account both the lack of space and the movement of the boat, today I wanted to highlight 3 of them. Here are 3 very specific exercises that you can combine in lots of different ways to get in a pretty good sweat. So the first one is side plank. And what you do is you start in a plank position, as if you were kind of getting ready to do a push-up. And then you roll onto one side and push yourself up on one arm. You can raise the other arm in the air if you wish. Basically what you're doing is you're putting yourself sideways. You're balancing on one foot. Maybe the other foot is not stacked on top of the one, but it might be behind it just to give you some support, particularly with that boat moving thing. And you push yourself up on one arm. You can stay in that position. You can pike up into the air, put your butt up into the air and kind of scoop the other arm underneath. You can hold it for 5 seconds and dip down for a couple of seconds and hop back up. If you are not quite at the level of being able to do that with just your feet on the ground, you can have one knee down while you're doing it as you're building up that strength. So side plank is a great, very energetic, surprisingly energetic exercise that will take into account you don't need a lot of space for it. You're not leaving the ground, and so the fact that the boat might be moving doesn't matter much. Make sure that if you're doing side plank, you're going to also do it on the other side. Don't just do it on one side, do it on the other side as well. Swinging hugs is my second exercise for the day. So what you're going to do is you start by standing. You're standing in a comfortable stance with your arms outstretched to the sides. You're going to squat. And then basically you're swinging and pivoting from one side to the other with your arms held outright. You're kind of joining one hand to the other hand as you squat and then stand up and pivot onto one side. And then you're going to squat and then pivot to the other side. And I call them swinging hugs because it's almost as if you're kind of throwing your arms around each other, but they're straight and you're going from one side to the other. This is an exercise that would be good to do. You could do it a certain number of times, or you could do it for a certain length of time. You might repeat this over and over again for 30 seconds. Your arms don't ever drop. They don't ever go down. You can make this harder on yourself by squatting down lower in between the times that you pivot from one side to the other. You could hold weights in your hands. You could hold a can of tomatoes in each hand. You could make it less difficult by not squatting as deeply. Basically, this takes into account what I call level changes. So if you're going from a taller position down to a shorter position and then standing back up again, that's a level change. And that is extraordinarily effective as an exercise. And then the third exercise is a V-sit, or otherwise known as boat pose from yoga. And basically you're on your back, you're lying down on your back, and you sit up at the same time that you raise your legs. You're forming a V shape. You're having your back is straight, your legs are straight. And this is a position that can be surprisingly challenging on a boat that's moving at all, because your body is tipping. You're on a fulcrum point on your sits bone. You can do Pilates 100s from this position, which is you hold your body and your legs in the same position and you pump your arms straight up and down. Or you can just hold the position and then lower for 5 and then back up. Ways to make this easier are to have your legs further up in the sky and to have the V kind of be tighter. And ways to make it more challenging are to try to get flatter while staying on that fulcrum point. These exercises you can combine in lots of different ways. I often like to do a circuit where you go from side plank to those swinging hugs, down to V-sit, and then to side plank, and then stand up to go to the hugs. And there's that level change that I've talked about before. You just can get that even in as you're moving from exercise to exercise. You could set a timer and do each exercise for 30 seconds before moving on to the next one. You could do each thing, say, 10 to 12 times as a repetition and then pause. But a thing to just remember and to keep in mind is that current science is showing that you don't have to do 4 hours of exercise a day to get a benefit. You don't even have to do a half an hour a day to get any benefit whatsoever. They're showing that even short bursts of exercise, doing those frequently, or even just doing short bursts of exercise, it's better than not doing anything at all. And that actually makes a whole lot of sense if you ask me. Of course, doing something is better than doing nothing. So even if you can't find a half an hour to do a big sweaty workout, or you can't find an hour to go for a run, you could do one of these or all 3 of these exercises a couple of times through each, and you will have done something. And that is better than nothing. I can't wait to share an Anchorage with you when we're just out enjoying the beautiful lifestyle that we get to enjoy. Thank you so much for listening to the Boat Galley podcast. We love it when we hear from our listeners. We love it when you share us with your friends. And we love it when you don't forget to subscribe in your favorite podcast app. Have the most spectacular week.